The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to yet another episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And on tonight's episode of the podcast, for the first part here, we've got Cameron from Utah Man Podcast, from @UtahMan. Wherever you find him, big Utah fan, in fact, lifelong Utah Ute fan. So Cameron, how's it going?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. This is a big week, big game week, right?
Big game week for sure. I just got confirmed today. I'm going to the game. So
that's sick, dude. I'm jealous. That's awesome.
Right, yeah.
That's awesome.
No, thanks. Yeah, actually, I work in Stillwater every day, so or I should say 4 days of the week. So it's awesome to go up for one time, but not make it for work. So it should be a great game here. And Oklahoma State's currently favored, but do want to ask you here, right off the bat, I guess, how's Cam Rising doing? Is he going to play in this game? Have any limitations at all that you're thinking about?
Yeah, so I think he will play. Just to kind of recap, in their Baylor game a week ago, he got thrown into a Gatorade stand, had an injury to his hand, kind of through the rumor mill, kind of social media talk. He dislocated a finger on his throwing hand. And then there's also rumors that he had to get a few stitches on it as well, which makes sense because if you saw him on the sideline right after, there was some blood on a towel that he had around it. I really think this past week, their game against Utah State, if it was a conference game, he would have played. So that's why I think there's a lot of confidence that he is going to go. He did dress for the Utah State game. So I don't know if they thought maybe if things got way too out of hand, they'd throw him in there. But he didn't play at all. With limitations, he had a glove on during the game and warm-ups, what people were saying. He had that glove on his throwing hand. But we'll see. I think with quarterbacks, right, that grip on that ball is everything. So we'll see if it kind of changes his throwing motion there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really curious to see him play because I one side of the family is a bunch of UCLA fans, so I've seen Cam Rising play a couple of times, once against UCLA, and always look up to him as like a guy who can definitely be a game manager type of guy who just grinds out games. But over the past 4 or 5 seasons or whatever, it seems like he's been in college for just as long as Bowman. But over the past couple seasons, how has his game evolved? What kind of quarterback is he today? Has it changed since he started out his career?
Oh, it's night and day different. When he started, I think being in a system for so long, and I'm sure Oklahoma State fans can attest to this. With a quarterback, when you have that many years in the system, you just know it inside and out. And seasons that he was out, he was up in the booth a lot of the time, sitting with the OC during the game, getting that one-on-one attention, like, oh, we're calling this for this reason, we're calling that for that reason. So I think mentally, his game has evolved the most. I think physically, he's always been able to throw the ball well. Right? I mean, he was highly recruited kid out of high school, first went to Texas before transferring to Utah. So definitely always had the physical talent to do it. But I think over the last few years that he's been healthy and playing, you can see that mental shift, really commanding that offense. And you look at games like USC when they're down, guys just buy into Cam as a leader. When he holds that huddle, he gets those guys accountable. There's a different feel with this team. When he went out and a true freshman went in, you could just feel the energy just drop. And I think that's the biggest thing Cam brings to the team is that confidence and that energy.
Yeah, I hope we don't see too much of it as OSU fans here and Boone Pickens this weekend. But I have to say, I mean, a guy who's got seventh year in college, he's beaten ranked teams previously, even at their own place. I mean, has lost to a couple too. I'm not saying that Cam Rising's the next best thing no one's heard of, but he definitely is a very good quarterback. What do you think about as far as his throwing, with his hand maybe, a little bit not perfect, as well as Utah's just style of play? Do you think you guys will be really worried about, hey, we'll be able to run the ball effectively because that'll open up the passing game? Or how do you usually go about winning games just Well, I guess what's your identity as a team on offense?
Yeah, so definitely a Kyle Winningham team is pound the ball. He's a defensive coach. He wants his defense to win games. He's That's kind of been the joke in the Pac-12 is every single year Utah would have a new OC because they'd get kind of run out of town. I think with Kyle, he likes to control the ball, or excuse me, control the clock. He doesn't want to put the ball in harm's way at all. And so he likes to kind of play like a 50-50 between the pass and the run, but Kyle loves him a run game. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of shifted a little bit with Cam. But I think Utah still, they're a smash mouth, run the ball at you as hard as they can. Now, the hard part is this year, they haven't really been able to do that effectively as they have in the past. They've really relied on their throw game. And we saw that in Utah State this past week. They couldn't run the ball. Well, they couldn't do anything to start the game, but their running was not good. And it was that passing attack that really opened the run game for them, I think. And so I think against Oklahoma State, they're going to try to establish that run. But really, I think Utah's offense, just where their talent is, it's in a passing attack offense.
Gotcha. Is that why you think that Utah State game was so close? Just that Rising didn't play, of course, and that the running game wasn't off to a great start?
Oh, yeah. Well, and to kind of set the stage there, so this is Utah's first time going to Logan, to Utah State, in over a decade. The starting quarterback for Utah State was at Utah. He started for most of the season last year for the Utes. So they were amped. They came out, the Aggies came out ready to play. They punched Utah in the mouth. And I think Utah, not having Rising, going in with a true freshman, getting his first start, and I think they just kind of felt they could show up because they were the P4 program against a Mountain West team and a team that they've beaten, 14 of the last 15 meetings. And so I think they kind of sleepwalked a little bit. And Utah State, give them credit. They came to play. As I said, they punched Utah in the mouth, went up, I think it was 14-3 to kind of start the game. Everything was just going their way. Once Utah kind of was able to get settled down, especially their true freshman quarterback in Isaac Wilson, once he kind of settled down, made a couple plays, then they started getting that thing rolling. But to credit Utah State, they came ready to play. They got embarrassed by USC the week before. They were a completely different team against the Utes, and they showed up.
Well, on that note here, is this Utah team living up to expectations so far? I mean, I know Rising being injured in the Utah State game is, but be able to come back this week against Oklahoma State, maybe not missing a beat at all and on track, or maybe it could have been seen as a little bit of a letdown in the last game on the defensive side or something. I'm just kind of curious what you guys think of your team thus far.
Yeah, it's so hard to get a feel on this team right now. In three games, Cam Rising has not played a full game yet. In their first game, they pulled him in the second quarter because they were just up so much. Playing an FCS school in southern Utah. The game was completely out of hand, out of reach in the second quarter. So they already pulled Cam by then. And then the injury in the Baylor game was a couple minutes before halftime. So we haven't even seen this whole offense in a full game yet. I think there's still a lot of question marks. Just because there is a lot of talent out there, pegged to be the team to win this conference, we just haven't even seen them this year. And honestly, in the game we thought in Baylor, it just didn't go that way because Cam got injured. And then after Cam got injured, as I said, that whole energy just left the stadium, left the team. They still won, but it was just a different team after Cam went out. So this week, against Oklahoma State, it's going to be interesting to kind of see, are we going to see a Utah starting offense complete the whole game?
Yeah, one would think you would be able to. Defensively, though, I would say this. Oklahoma State, so far, our offense has looked pretty darn good. Our defense has given up a lot of big plays. But I'm curious for you guys defensively, do you think you're going to play stacking the box, really worry about our run game, even though our run game has not been anything to write home about thus far this season? Or do you think you're going to play more of a conventional defense and try to basically make Bowman beat you through the air?
Yeah, so I think a Utah defense really focuses on the run primarily. They like to kind of stack the box on their outside, on their corners, on their safeties. You're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups just because Utah likes to keep everything at the line of scrimmage, really, stop the run. Essentially, it is the Utah defense. They they love living in the backfield. So against anyone, and especially like a team like Oklahoma State with Ollie back there, I think Utah's going to focus on him, and rightfully so. And I think that kind of what Utah likes to do already is attack that run game. You're going to see a lot of man-to-man single coverage in the passing game.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, then on the opposite side of it here, what from our defense do you think you'll be able to exploit most on offense? What are you guys best at offensively overall?
So right now this season, what we have seen is Utah's been living on that big play. The big plays in they have running back Dejon Stanley, super fast, not so much as a ball runner, but they use him out of the backfield, kind of leak him out as an extra receiver. Their wheel routes are his specialty, and I think that's where they want to attack most defenses. And looking at Oklahoma State, it seems like the past 2 years, maybe their defense has kind of given up quite a few points, and their offense, and you would know way more than me, but it seems like their offense has really been that strength of the team. And so I think that's where Utah may try to use that speed they have on the outside, make big plays. Then that's really what we've seen so far from Utah this season when that offense has been in the game.
Yeah, you just touched on it, but I think that's probably going to be the way that we got to beat you guys, is outscoring you. I don't think our defense is good enough to stop you overall. And with that being said, I don't love our odds in doing that, just because that's never really a true way to win games when you have to outscore somebody. It doesn't give you a lot of confidence or a lot of like, oh, you know what, like we'll be good, watch out type of deal, because it just is going to be. It's just not a great place to be if you're like, hey, we'll outscore you, especially when it's Utah's defense that I'm worried about a little bit. Definitely if we can stop the run, that shuts down a whole part of our game, and I do think that's why our offense hasn't looked good offensively on the run game side of it. Excuse me. In basically the whole year. We average like 112, 113 yards a game rushing, but we're over 300 yards a game passing. The Arkansas game is a weird anomaly just overall. We lost that total yardage wise to Arkansas by like 200 yards or close to it.
Oh, dang.
So I'm really curious how we're going to play there. But basically since Jim Knowles, who's now the Ohio State defensive coordinator, since he left for Ohio State, our defense has been under different identities. And I think we have really good players, but I was really hoping we have Colin Oliver healthy this part of the season. Our guy who's All-American, who's now ruled out for some time, definitely out for this game, probably out for the next game as well too, if not even longer. And that was the way I thought we could maybe get to Utah a little bit, is getting to Cam Rising, just getting some sacks, getting some bigger plays on defense, because I don't think our defense really forces that many 3 and outs. Arkansas, the whole first half, they got to 3 and 10, 3 and 5, 3 and whatever, and they would convert every time it seemed, or fourth downs they convert either way. Is there a good way to beat this Utah team? I know you guys won. There's a good reason why you're also top 15 team in the nation. There's another good reason why you're ranked ahead of us, I'm sure, as well too. But is there some type of blueprint or some type of thing you go, hey, this is our biggest weakness that other teams can exploit right now?
Yeah. So I think definitely the offensive line has not played great this season. And we kind of see that with Utah every year. It seems like their offensive line, it takes 7-8 games to really come together and be a good offensive line. The last couple of seasons, it seems like the beginning of the season and up to the middle, It's always kind of been their downfall, is their offensive line. I think that's where probably their biggest weakness on offense is going to be that line. If teams can attack that, kind of overload it, really shut down that run game, I think that's where Utah gets really uncomfortable. And we saw that in the Utah State game. I mean, Utah State was living in the backfield, just eating up that offensive line in the first quarter, and it made the offense very slow, and just they couldn't do anything.
Well, what do you think is a good way for you guys to win? I mean, I know we talked about the running game already, Cam Rising. What's the blueprint for you guys to go, hey, we feel really confident about this one aspect of our game right now?
Oh, that's a head scratcher right now. It probably is going to be the front seven on defense. That's always Utah's strength. As I mentioned, with Kyle Whittingham being a defensive-minded coach, they always kind of put the best players on defense, and that was kind of always the joke. Now that we're 20 years as Kyle is the head coach, is anytime they recruit an athlete, they put him on defense. They don't put him on offense. And it really wasn't until about 2 or 3 years ago that we actually started getting, significant talent on offense. It was always defense. But that front seven, that defensive line and linebackers definitely is the strength of that defense. That's why I said they want to attack that run game. They want to force teams to throw on them because they feel that's where they can get turnovers. They had 2 picks against Utah State, but it's hard when you're playing man coverage and you got one-on-ones. When you get a very talented quarterback that can just pick you apart, that's what worries me with Utah at times. They like to run a nickel to try to get another DB in there just because they're so run heavy. But sometimes it can kind of bite them in the butt. I think last year against Oregon State, they just got ran off the field. DJU, who's not doing much at Florida State this year, but last year when he's at Oregon State, he ran Utah right off that field, just quick passes out to his receivers, and Utah going to hang with them.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, a couple more questions for you here. But one thing I just want to throw in as well, at some point I had to say it. Cam Rising and I have some similar things in common here. One, we're both about the same height, 6'2". But the second thing, we both were born in the same city in California, which is just kind of interests me overall. In Ventura, California. Cam Rising seems like one of those guys where I think 2 years ago I would have gone, hey, who knows, NFL draft pick, like could be tops, or whatever. Could be in the conversation for first quarterback selected, but it's so like 2022 me kind of talking, right? This is kind of the, hey, you know what, we lost to Penn State, but on a January 2nd game, right? Like it's a big time deal. We've, won the Pac-12, etc. We lost the Rose Bowl by a score, so be it. What did you think of Cam Rising when he got to campus at Utah? Has this guy been like a heralded prospect for quite some time, or has it really just been kind of one of the Kyle Whittingham projects? Yeah. Not sure, maybe I cut out there a little, Cameron, but yeah, I'm just curious what you kind of think about Cam Rising since he started.
Yeah. So you got to remember, Cam's 25, right? So you got to go way back. The thing when he first came. So as I mentioned, he came from Texas. So obviously, right off the bat, Utah fans were already in love because it was, a quarterback that was coming from, a blue chip program in Texas. Kind of just thinking of Cam over the years, he's just a fan favorite. He's got his own theme music, it's Bad Moon Rising, that they play whenever he runs out on the field. It's interesting because I kind of thought the same thing years ago, that he had a shot at the NFL. Watching him, especially his first his first year he was at Utah and had to sit out. We're able to see some practices, and so we're able to see him throw, and he looked good. This is the future right here. I think with injuries that's really hampered him. And I think one reason why he has stayed as long as he has is because of NIL. I mean, he's making more money with NIL than if he was able to get on a scout team in the NFL. I don't really think high of him as an NFL prospect, and I'm not some quarterback NFL draft guru. I'm not trying to act like I am. Just things I'm reading, trying to learn this team more, what national guys are saying. I kind of feel that he would kind of go as a free agent right now, maybe very late draft pick. It is what it is. Not taking anything away from him. He's still, QB1 here. I think Utah fans would love to have him for another year. I think they've applied for another year for him because of that transfer year that he missed coming out of Texas. So who knows? We might have Cam for another 3 years. He might have 4 Masters by the time he's done playing at Utah.
That would be one heck of a thing to see. And I got to say, I think all of our chips are in this basket for Oklahoma State purposes for this season. Yeah, I mean, we've got Bowman's 7th year. Ollie Gordon is probably his last year, I would assume, just because he's got so much draft potential. And some other guys on the roster too, especially like our whole offensive line is, I mean, they're not 25, but they're close to it. They're 23 plus, I believe, on average here. I know Justin Kirkland, who's a famous Oklahoma State lineman, but he's also from Utah, so you're looking forward to the game. But with that being said, I would have asked him one more question today in the press conference stuff that I do not know the answer to. So I'm going to ask you instead, what is a Ute? Well, the Utah Utes, what's the mascot?
So it's named after the Ute Indian tribe. So it's an Indian tribe that, was in Utah, and that's where the state name Utah comes from, is from the Ute Indian tribe. It's really cool because once a year, they come and do a halftime show in Rice-Eccles Stadium, and at the basketball games they'll do a halftime show. But they'll come out and do a drum circle, and they'll have their dancers going, and they're all in their traditional ceremonial dress. So it's really cool. Really trying to connect the university, the fans, with the Indian tribe that they use the name of. Their mascot is a red-tailed hawk. If we want to go that far, so with like the cheerleaders, it's a red-tailed hawk. But for their nickname, it's the Utes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, cool. I'm learning new things about all the different conference members, except for Colorado, because they were already part of the Big 12 when I'm an Oklahoma State fan.
Yeah.
Now I will say basketball, looking forward to playing you guys this year. Other sports, of course, as well, too. Well, just because we're not supposed to be that good at basketball, so if you guys are also not supposed to be that good,
yeah,
we're looking forward to it. I think we might be both in the same kind of. We got a brand new head coach and brand new. Most of the roster, if not the whole roster, is brand new. I mean, it's not completely brand new, but we're both on the same similar circumstances, I guess. Let's say in building Big 12 programs in basketball.
I will tell you this: the most. Probably the exciting part about Utah's basketball season is this is the first year, I think in like 4 or 3 seasons, that they've actually used all their scholarships. So that's their winning moment is they're using all their scholarships first time. So yeah, it's not pretty.
Well, yeah, but isn't Andrew Bogut a former Ute?
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Utah was a basketball school. When I was growing up, it was all Utah Utes basketball. Andre Miller, Keith Van Horn, all these guys playing in the NBA. It was all Utah basketball, and really it was hard to get basketball tickets. It was really easy to get football tickets. Honestly, they started letting people in at halftime for free at football games just because it was so empty. And then Urban Meyer came here. And that really switched everything. That's when Utah really became, a football school. Right now, I think there are over 85 consecutive sellouts in Rice Eccles Stadium. So it's definitely a football team or football school right now. But yeah, a Final Four appearance in the 90s. Yeah, as you said, Andrew Bogut, #1 draft pick overall. It's crazy. It's crazy to think in my youth just how everything was Utah basketball and now everything's Utah football.
Yeah, no, I would say it's very similar for Oklahoma State as far as when the head coach changed, when it became Eddie Sutton was 1-04, he won the Big 12 championship for Oklahoma State basketball. And then since then, it's been rocky. There's been some bright moments. There's definitely a #1 overall draft pick and Cade Cunningham in 2020. There's 2016 Marcus Smart, top, he's a 6th overall pick to the Celtics. There's some other guys, Tony Allen, of course, through the program as well too, the Graham brothers. But really, once Gundy kind of got on the field and made his presence known and beat OU, definitely in 2011 is really when it switched completely over, right, to everyone. So there's been a huge football fan since then, winning the Big 12, decimating OU in a game. But granted, Gundy's won 4 against OU now, so hang my hat on that one here as an Oklahoma State fan. Sounds like we won't play OU for quite some time here going forward. But do you have any questions for me here about Oklahoma State or any questions about Boone Pickens Stadium or anything like that as well?
Yeah, really, what's like the game, if I can think right, the game day atmosphere there?
Yeah, I'd say I don't think of Oklahoma State as a party school, but it's definitely like a tailgating school for sure. I mean, Thursdays at 5 p.m., everyone's trying to, pick their spot out on campus to put out the big, huge kind of 8x8 tents over stuff, mark their spot, fence off an area. And then it's a pretty darn cool thing that I think Oklahoma State does. I'm curious what Utah does kind of on the opposite side of it, but walking over the stadium, the whole team stays in the hotel on campus the night before, and they walk I don't even know if it's a quarter of a mile, maybe even less, maybe a 1/10 of a mile or something. They walk from the hotel to the stadium. And so there's a walk. Gundy, all the players are all either suited up or all in the same exact practice gear or whatever. Walk on over, kind of escorted by police, but just walking, of course. It's a really cool thing. And then just a bunch of fan activities, festive stuff going on before the game. Seems like every single college within the university has something going on too, whether it be handing out shirts or food or drinks or whatever it may be. And then on the north side of campus, there's a huge, basically right south of the practice field, there's a huge area where, a bunch of younger fans can play on inflatables, get their faces painted, all that good type of stuff too. So it's a huge atmosphere. And
dang.
Gundy said earlier today in his press conference, he said he thinks one of the reasons the whole season sold out for Oklahoma State football season tickets is because of this Utah game. This one was the kind of one where you go, well, if I got to buy this one, I've got to buy this one to get season tickets. I don't want to wait for single game tickets to go on sale. Then I'm just going to go buy season tickets. And to me, it's very interesting because we don't host OU this year. And we've kind of made it a point as Oklahoma State fans to go, we don't need OU. We'll bring in this many people
Exactly.
for every single game, no matter what. And homecoming is our biggest game of the year football wise, but we generally played against a team that we're favored to beat preseason, which this year it's ASU we're playing, and who knows? ASU's looking all right so far. But with that being said, it's a huge game day atmosphere. The whole town of Stillwater, Oklahoma, I'm not sure how it is for Utah, but it's a town of 20-ish thousand people when school's not in session. And then overnight, once, middle of August hit and school's in session, it's a town of 50,000 people and could even support a Target, but it's instead got 3 Walmarts. So it's definitely a college town. It's halfway between Tulsa and Oklahoma City as far as driving time wise, about an hour each way. And it's that's on airport, the whole deal. But it's definitely a college-esque and very college atmosphere, especially compared to our Bedlam foes in the South who live 20 minutes away from Oklahoma City and are definitely more of the, their closer proximity to a bigger city definitely makes just a different atmosphere going to games at OU versus OSU as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I think Utah's, going to be opposite of that, right? I mean, the campus, the stadium, it's only 10 minutes away from downtown Salt Lake City. But Utah similar in the fact that it's a big tailgate scene uh, for football games. And that's kind of interesting because as Utah fans, we don't know a lot about the Big 12. Teams like Oklahoma State, as far as I know, there's no history between these two programs, and that's what's getting exciting for me as a college football fan. Is yes, with conference realignment, we've lost kind of that regionality rivalries. But when Utah was in the Pac-12, we started developing rivalries with teams you wouldn't expect. Utah and ASU, there's some bad blood there. So it's going to be interesting and it's going to be fun. Playing a team like Oklahoma State. I know Utah fans have had this game circled. Not only is it because it is the very first Pac-12 conference game for them, right? Because the Baylor game didn't count for conference. I think Utah fans perceive Oklahoma State as one of the top teams in this conference. When Utah got brought into the conference, that was standing out to all Utah fans. Is we get to play Oklahoma State, So I think this is gonna be a good one. Maybe a rivalry kind of starts this weekend, but it's definitely, as a Utah fan going against Oklahoma State, this is one that I think Utah fans going to the Big 12, they circled.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think it's the same for us as well. I think last year when it was like, hey, what's the schedule going to look like next year with Utah joining the conference, with Arizona joining, Colorado with Deion Sanders as the head coach, who knows what recruits and transfers she'll bring in. And now through a couple of games, I think a couple of those worries have basically been limited, but not the game against Utah. That one still is definitely front and center here, and we're excited for this weekend's game here. I did look it up before I started recording, and Oklahoma State and Utah have played once before. It's during the year of 1945, the year we won our national championship, which was later deemed our national championship. I won't go into that too much. There's not, honestly, ton that I researched.
Cam Rising's freshman year.
Oh, yeah. Alan Bowman's as well, maybe? I think that's...
Oh, yeah. Aren't they the two...
One big deal. Yeah, is that
aren't they the two oldest?
Yeah, I'm sure ESPN or I think this game's on Fox. I'm sure Fox will only talk about both that being 2 7-year quarterbacks against each other.
Yeah, that's going to be their number one.
I'll talk about it once for like 10 seconds. I'm sure. I'm kidding, of course. All right. Well, Cameron, thanks so much for joining here. I want to get a score prediction from you here before we go ahead and end out this part of the podcast.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. Honestly, I think. Last I saw, Oklahoma State is the favorite right now. I think it's going to be close. I'm a homer, so I got to go with the Utes. I think it's going to come down to a field goal, though. I've got 24-21.
All right. Well, that's a little bit less scoring than I have personally, but I have it by a touchdown, but that's not currently the line. But I do have barely the over here. I just think it'll be a little more scoring than I'm comfortable with, of course. But I think it's going to be 35-28 Oklahoma State. So I no matter what, it'd be a really, really good game here. 3:00 Central. I forget Utah is not on Arizona time, but anyways,
we're Mountain, so it'll be 2 o'clock here.
Yeah, 2 p.m. So if you're not tuning in, make sure to do so. Thanks so much, Cameron, for joining here, and follow at Utah Man on X or Twitter. And make sure you go and follow his podcast as well, as we record a segment as well, too, that I'm a guest on. And follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter, Instagram. Send us some questions here for the next episode of the podcast. And then stay tuned here for the second segment here, where I have Patrick McDermott on, a good college football fan, or a great college football fan, and a non-biased Big 12 fan. He's a fan of a different conference, so it's a different insight as well. So thanks again, Cameron, and we'll catch you guys again soon. Welcome back to the second part of the podcast tonight here. You just listened to the Utah Man and I discuss Utah Oklahoma State football, but now, of course, I'm joined with very good friend, ex or old coworker, whatever the right terminology would be that sounds better, and fellow huge college football fan, And now SEC fan, I think. Am I right in saying all that, Patrick?
SEC. That's right.
Yeah. We'll see if you guys are chanting in 5 years. But for this year, you look great. Texas looks great this year. Nothing.
Yeah, not
about,
really.
Right?
And I usually come on this show and I am very pessimistic and I am very sort of rain cloudy and glasses half empty. We're not going to do anything. We're just mediocre. I'm not going to waste time doing that, Calvin. We'll get into that. But yes, it is a very, very fun time to be a Texas fan. We have a lot of options on the table in front of us as far as the future, which I'm sure we'll also talk about. But they're all good options. So, yeah, it's a great time for Texas. It's a great time for college football. Seems to be a good start for the Cowboys as well. So, a couple of 3-0 fan bases over here. We're having a good September so far.
It's been good. It's been good so far. It has not been good for Tulsa, though, because they just got their... after doing the interview with the Tulsa guys last week and learning that their starter is a redshirt freshman who originally was a walk-on, I had different expectations of what we should be doing. They had just lost to Arkansas State. The game was favored by 20. So, we took care of business, but if we hadn't, that'd been a real red flag. I want to ask you this mainly, though, just because I know you're not Oklahoma State biased. I know you were not born into Oklahoma State. Texas, who knows? But Oklahoma State, I know you're not biased. So what do you think of the Oklahoma State Cowboys this far?
I think you're off to a great start. I think the Arkansas game was a great win because it's a game that you could have easily lost and maybe other Oklahoma State teams would have lost. I certainly feel that way about Texas, where you squeak out some games where you're like, yeah, our old group of guys, they wouldn't have gotten that, So I thought that was a great team win. I did kind of think Arkansas blew the game a little bit. They had a great chance to win it in regulation. I think you and I talked briefly on the phone in between the fourth quarter and OT or sometime in that, maybe in between one of the overtimes, I think. Anyway, but I remember going, they're good. Once they're going to win this game in overtime, Oklahoma State is the better team. Long story short, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I think this is probably an 8-4 football team, maybe a 9-3 football team, but I'm not sure this is a college football playoff football team. I will say that what I've seen of Bowman has impressed me. He looks better than I've seen him look in the past. And I think this is a good football team. I don't have a great sense of their defense. I think I'd like to see some more from that. Tulsa is not necessarily the best test there, but I will say Tulsa should be a little more interesting than they were because they've got Ohio State's longtime offensive coordinator, from Urban Meyer and Ryan Day's, college football playoff teams. So he's kind of the new CEO of that Tulsa program, but certainly didn't put up much of a fight. So,
yeah, they played all three quarterbacks, which when you're playing all three quarterbacks in a game, you're probably losing by a lot. I wish we had shut them out. That would have been the one really cool thing that to at least we shut out Tulsa. Giving up 10 points is no big deal, though, at the end of the day, especially when we're probably all putting in backups, especially after they score 3. Then we're definitely putting in backups. We're not messing around, is the hope at least. But what makes you say 8-4, 9-3 so far watching Oklahoma State? Do you not love that Arkansas win? Because I honestly don't either.
Fine.
So I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not saying everybody would probably say Arkansas is like a bottom third SEC team, probably, but still definitely a good win. Was it on the road? I forget. No, it was in Stillwater.
No, that was yeah.
I think Utah is a very tough game. I think Kansas State is a very tough game. Back to back, those are very tough. I think you guys, you'll have to help me on the home visitor, but I think you guys go to Morgantown. You play Baylor, I believe. I was just looking at the schedule going, man, this is dicey, especially that it's right now. So no time to think about it, but Utah and Kansas State, that is a really tough back-to-back, especially with how good Kansas State looked the other night against Arizona. So I just see the Big 12 being a little tougher than people think. Colorado, I think you guys close it out against Colorado in Boulder. So we'll see. I'm not really a believer in Colorado, but that's a tough game as well.
Yeah, I mean, like West Virginia at home. All right, great. At least we play them at home, but still they're not going to be easy. And then the one game that I, at least right now, I've circled on the calendar as a possible worry, but granted, got to get through the next 2 weeks. Like just a team that I've been watching going, wow, they're much better than I thought they'd be, is Arizona State. I just did not think they were, and they could honestly just not be very good, period. And Mississippi State could be horrible, but they're an SEC team, so I put some stock in winning that game, especially the way they did, where they really had the whole game under control and then basically let Mississippi State within a touchdown there at the end to make it look a little bit better. But yeah, I don't love the Arkansas win just because it was like a grinded out win, but that's kind of, I want to say it's a rarity. That was so close to being their game. That was, you know, if we're talking about how we love Gundy as Oklahoma State fans and hey man, he just really grinded one out there, figured out a way to win when no one else would or should. That's about as close as you can get to grinding. I mean, like double overtime, miss the PA. You do not have kind of the football gods on your side when you miss the easy field goal in the first overtime and stuff either. And then you go back and win in the second. And the other thing I'd say too is like Oklahoma State is, I'd say coming into the season, everyone thought, hey, this is the Ollie Gordon show. Like, let's see what we've got. It's Ollie Gordon or bust. That's it. And so far through 3 games, which 2 of them were just, I mean, an FCS team. I know it's South Dakota State, but still an FCS team. And then Tulsa, who's
not good.
Not good. I mean, they're just rebuilding. They're working through some stuff, whatever. I know the Arkansas deal's in there too, but we're 112 yards per game rushing 3 games into the season going to Utah. Like, I just don't, it's not a recipe. I don't love our O-line play. I don't love our run blocking. I don't love all that type of stuff. You know, there's some validity in basically the criticism.
Yeah, the problem too is that your best chance for the playoff out of the Big 12 is obviously to win it. I think 9 times out of 10, the champion is champion could be the only Big 12 team. Maybe they get two teams in something. But the problem is, I think OSU's toughest games are all in conference. And again, it starts this week with Utah. I don't know if Cam Rising is playing. I don't know what the situation there is, but OSU is kind of on that same plane with some of these teams like Utah and Kansas State. And you could argue Colorado, Arizona State, that it feels like they're going to lose some of those. Some just aren't going to go their way. They had a hard fought one against Arkansas. So that's where I'm coming from. I think they make a good bowl game. And I mean, we've talked about it. A 3-loss team could make the playoff. I don't know if a 3-loss Big 12 team could make the playoff, but if they turn around and beat, a backup Utah quarterback by a lot, if they make it look good, there's just not that many games in a football season. You steal a couple, like a Utah game against a backup quarterback, and suddenly you're on a good path.
Yeah, I mean, that could be really, really good. I will say right now, as it stands, Cam Rising supposedly is going to play, and it's just really held out at the second half of that Utah State game last week, just basically out of caution. But supposedly he's going to play, which to me is, I'm curious what will be the consensus after this game is over. Who will be the better quarterback? Will it be Alan Bowman or will it be Cam Rising? Because to me, I don't want to say the same guy or like interchangeable, but the years in college are very similar. The fact that neither this a true runner or anything like that or making moves with their feet, but the way that both process and throw the ball is different to me. So I'm curious who will be hey, this guy's it, consensus wise at the end of the day. And I'm nervous to say that it might be Cam Rising. I just haven't seen him play in a game that's mattered in quite some time now. So I'm don't get me wrong. I'm super hopeful for Oklahoma State. I just am weary about the way we would win. Like the way we'd win is basically, hey, we've got Dana Holgerson back there, we're doing the air raid like it's 2011 and just throwing it over the top of them and beating them with athletes. And I don't I don't think they're far off in the athlete perspective whatsoever. So it's going to be tough no matter
you're
what.
in a fun spot, though, because like I said, you are kind of in that group of teams that could win it. You know, like you're kind of in these like B plus teams that can win their conference each and every year. I think OSU is going to be in that situation, like in this new Big 12, you know, like, and I think this year is probably going to be pretty typical. Like you guys will probably be around 9 wins. Some years you'll have 10 or 11 and make the playoff. You know, like this is not a bad spot to be. I hope they continue to pay Gundy and keep him around. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't see him doing anything wrong at all here by Gundy's standards. So I hope he's good. I don't know if anyone saw earlier today. I'll try to insert the clip if I can find it real quick. But he helped fix the fridge in the press box room.
Good guy.
Made Channel 4 at least. So it's all around great guy. Yeah, he was.
Got to keep those Diet Cokes cold, you know.
Oh well, apparently we're a Pepsi school. I learned that as well today from seeing the fridge. So I mean, can't be saying the DC on the on the pod, I guess. Do you want to guess what the line is for this game, the Oklahoma State Utah game?
I've not looked. Who's at home?
It's a home game. Yep.
Home game, I'm going to say you guys are. Oh, that's very close. And Cam Rising is apparently playing. I think you guys are a 1.5 home dog. I think
it's 2.5 is where it opens.
Utah
so
by
far.
2.5.
So it's Oklahoma State by 2.5.
That's good.
Yeah. The over-under set at 53.5. So in my mind, I don't know how you would be able to tell me a little bit better here, just because I think you understand college football lines a little bit more than I do. Only getting 2.5 at home. Is that technically, we should be getting 3? 3's the home favorite. And that means it's neutral.
So there's a lot of uncertainty about whether Rising is actually going to play. Frankly, because I think on paper, like Utah with their quarterback, that's why they're a top, 11 team, 12 team or something. But it's like he's just never on the field, guys. Like you can't really put him on the team on paper anymore. Like he just hasn't seen the field. So, I mean, yeah, to me, he's the better quarterback when he's healthy, but like you can't count on him. So from a line perspective, yeah, that tells me I kind of don't think he's going to play, because it feels like Oklahoma State should be a little bit punished for squeaking out that Arkansas win. But I don't know. I mean, that's not far. It's close to a pick 'em on either side. But from what I just said, it sounds like I should bet on Utah and take the points. But I won't do that. Not on the pod. Yep.
Well, thanks, Elise. Thanks.
But that'll be a great game. I look forward to watching. That's a great one.
Yeah. No, I mean, in case anyone's curious, hopefully see you there. Shoot a DM or something to pod here, and we'll say hi. But yeah, going to the game this weekend should be a lot of fun. Should be a great game. I mean, it's at 3. It's weird to me that College Game Day and the Big 12 kickoff, or big noon kickoff, excuse me, neither of them decide to go to a top 15 matchup. Instead, they're going just a little bit south of us to see OU and Josh Heupel. Yeah. It's a big noon. And then I forget where the College Game Day is going, but it's not a Big 12 school. I know it's got to be an SEC or Big 10. I think the only time that a Big 12 school will get it, at least it's not this weekend, then and it won't be next week, because I forget how Alabama's playing, but I think it's Georgia next weekend.
Well, Georgia plays Alabama.
There's no way.
Not this weekend.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Next.
Yeah, so the wrong way.
But you know what it is, dude? Yeah, I think they're at Michigan and USC. That is a cool one.
Oh,
that's a cool one for sure.
That's a cool one. We'd try to go if we're still living together in LA. Yeah, now the whole Big Ten change kind of makes me miss it a little bit, I got to say. But with that being said, could have seen Indiana just whoop up on UCLA this past weekend if I really wanted to. So didn't miss anything there. That being said, I initially thought earlier on the season Oklahoma State had a Heisman Trophy hopeful in the backfield, but through 3 games, it's not looking great. But who is looking great from the Heisman Trophy perspective? Quinn Ewers. Now that is until the O'Donnell injury, so I don't know. What are the thoughts? What are the feelings behind Texas fans right now between the quarterback situation? It's not a bad place to be. I have to say
it's not a bad place to be. In fact, I would kind of argue it's a win-win. I mean, we have now. Do I think that Ewers was maybe getting a little too much hype? As far as the Heisman is concerned, yeah, I do. I don't think Quinn is a Joe Burrow. He's not an Andrew Luck. He's not a Cam Newton. He's not a Baker Mayfield, as much as it pains me to say that. He's not a face of college football type guy, as much as I love him as my quarterback. You know what I'm saying? So, like, he was not a shoe-in, NFL quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, the way he would kind of been anointed after that Michigan game, right? That being said, he should be the quarterback of this team, and Arch Manning will get his time. I am a little bit on the stay woke train when it comes to the whole Arch situation, because I think the powers that be at Texas wanted him in there bad. And feel free to take this as far as you want, but like I basically called this exact scenario back at the beginning of the season, where Quinn Ewers has an unfortunate injury and everyone is just absolutely heartbroken for him. Doesn't get to finish his senior year, gets to parade off to the NFL as a first-round pick, and Arch Manning takes over an undefeated squad, wins a championship, plays 2 more years at Texas with that Manning name on his jersey, and the burnt orange powers that be could not be happier. And I think we're seeing that play out in front of our eyes, Calvin. I think that's what happened on Saturday night. I'm not saying any injuries were orchestrated, certainly, but I think that there were a lot of people shaking hands and congratulating themselves going, all right, we got Arch in there, because it's going to be hard to get him out. It's going to be hard to get him out. They will get him out. They're going to do it. Like when Quinn is back, he's going to get the starting job back. But also Quinn misses a lot of time, dude. Like, Quinn will probably miss more time. Abdominal strain is very vague to me. I don't know. I think he took some hard hits. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but I do think we have a really good problem on our hands. And it's very fun to have your team be the number 1 team in the country. It is also week 3, so I'm not going to overreact about that. But we have truly elite weapons. We have truly, we have 2 very dangerous quarterbacks, and we have a pretty adequate running game, despite our star running back being out for the season. So we've got a lot going for us, and I haven't even gotten to the defense. But Texas is really fun right now, dude. And I know that's difficult for other people, but it is a lot of fun.
I gotta say, if we were playing each other in the conference this year, I'd be like, all right, this won't be our year. Sucks. Like, well, I just wouldn't have a lot of. I do a weekly show with I'll call it the Big 12 Huddle, which comes out usually on Thursdays. But in that, every other Big 12 fan who's on there just makes fun of me for being like the pessimistic OSU fan, like who hurt you type of deal, because I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna be good. I don't think you've known a different side of me than that either. I'm just always skeptical. I'm always like,
that's me too, because that's what I know.
Tulsa.
Like that's the Texas football that I know. Oh, disappointment. So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even say like the Arkansas game, I was like, I think we won by 10, but I'm not like super hopeful. The first game of the season against South Dakota State, I was like, I don't know. Maybe we'll win by 10. I was just super reserved on every suspicion here, but I got to say, I mean, Texas looks good. It's not a shocker to me that they look good, but the Malik Murphy erasure has happened way too quickly. I mean, the man's 3-0 at Duke. He's playing. He's got to win against a Big Ten team. Yeah. So I don't know. Now, was it a double overtime win against Northwestern?
Hey,
but they're Big Ten team last time I checked. So,
and I mean, I'm a big Malik guy. I was sad to see him go, but like it had to happen, I guess. Like that's way above me, but he's a dude, and he has got a cannon. He's like 6'5", 235. Like, it's great. He's great. He looks
he's
like
Anthony
Richardson.
He's Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. It's a good comparison.
Yeah. Maybe he'll just be a more seasoned Anthony Richardson. He's already played more games in the past 2 years than Richardson has, I think.
Wow.
Richardson did in college, I think. Or no, not in college. He played 1 year. But anyways, regardless of that here. I also do want to ask you, though, about what you think will happen with the Big 12. I know you're no longer in the Big 12. You're, fully SEC branded. There's no way you're ever leaving the SEC now.
Sure.
It'll never happen. It's destiny. You'll sell a bunch of jerseys and shirts and everything with Manny on the back of it for,
I'll get one for sure.
years, and be...
It's going to happen.
I eventually could see us, if both our teams make it to the national championship, play each other. I'm sure there'll be a jersey.
There'll be a jersey swap.
If we get that far, we'll sign them. But with that being said, what do you think will happen with the Big 12 here? Do you think we'll be the third best conference? Is there any chance we come the second? I mean, will we fall out of the favoritism? I don't know. What do you think will happen?
Yeah,
overall?
great question. Because I think obviously your competition is the ACC, who is definitely in turmoil, right? Like Clemson and Florida State are constantly trying to leave. All of a sudden, Miami is looking very good, so they're a big factor. But back to the Big 12, it's like they're not as top heavy, right? So they have, I think they have a much better, so they have much more depth, let's say, than the ACC. You could chop off, I think, the bottom half of the ACC, and you're really not going to affect the competitive landscape of college football very much. But I think you have teams in the bottom half of the Big 12, like a West Virginia or like a Baylor, right? In addition to the current Big 12 teams that are suddenly giant brands like Colorado, and arguably OSU is probably a top 3 brand in the Big 12 now. I think, you're going to get tons of big bowls every year from the Big 12. They're going to continue to have like prominent draft picks. I think more often than not, they're probably going to be the 4 seed. In the playoff, like they'll probably finish behind the ACC as far as the champion most of the time, just because they are less top heavy. Like I think chances are a Clemson, a Florida State, or a Miami is going to be ranked above an Oklahoma State, a Utah, or a Kansas State. Just a guess, not always true. But I think it's alive and well, dude. And I think Colorado and the Arizona schools coming over, awesome. I think honestly, frankly, that's way more exciting than the moves beforehand, like Houston and BYU and Cincinnati and UCF. Although UCF's looking pretty good, huh? Just another example, like the league has depth for sure.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I hope that remains to be true no matter what, because I think if the Big 12 can somehow get Miami or FSU, it almost has to be both, right? And then, get Clemson. Matters who that one other team is. Like, is that one other do we get to 20 teams and that one other team is Syracuse or, somebody because they had like a couple good years recently. That's what I worry about, because with all the UCF fans, the way you talk about UCF is I think how all Big 12 fans talk about UCF, except for UCF fans. I've never met a more passionate, crazy fan base that is just like, hey, you suck. Just in your face all the time. And like, we've beat UCF so far in women's tennis. That's it. As Oklahoma State. So like, did they get to the Big 12 championship last year? Nope. Are they favored to win the Big 12 this year? Nope. Do we play them this year in the regular season? Nope. So like, it seems odd, but I do agree. I think Utah, I just think a bunch of the really nationally known schools, if they join the Big 12, it'll be like a permanent stamp of you're the third best conference. But for the time being, like, what if Stanford has like a renaissance period in the next 5 years, or something? I mean, just some crazy stuff happens, right? Like, I don't think Berkeley will do it. I don't think Stanford will do it, honestly. But, SMU is not going to return to the Pony Express.
I don't know, man. Keep an eye out for SMU. We'll see. I don't know. They're certainly pumping money into that program. That's for sure. I mean, they moved heaven and earth to join the ACC. So
I don't know. Just one to keep an eye on.
Well, I don't know if you saw. Yeah, and I don't know if you saw, but Baylor, they pay players. I don't know if you saw, they made shirts about it.
Like
Baylor
just
pays players.
a salary or a stipend.
They literally had shirts and like warm-ups for, I think, their first game. It just says "We pay players."
Fair enough.
On it. Baylor logo. I mean, what works, at the end of the day. But all right, let's let me ask you this here, last couple minutes of the podcast though. Do you have like I'm not going to ask you to pick 12 teams for the playoffs, but top 4 maybe, or conference winners? Sure. What's we're 3 weeks into the season. No one's really played conference games besides one Big 12 conference game and a couple SEC. So, it's real early on, but
yeah,
if you get it right, incredible.
This is just off the cuff, top of my head. Give me number 4 Big 12 champion Kansas State. Give me 3. By the way, if you watch the game on Friday night, Kansas State, Arizona, Avery Johnson went off. Looks like a heck of a quarterback. I hadn't seen him play, I don't think, until that night. And I was like, let's keep an eye on these guys. So Kansas State, number 4. I will go with, Cam Ward looks really good. So I would go number 3, Miami Hurricanes. Number 2, this is sounding pretty chalky, but I will go number 2, Oregon Ducks. I think Oregon gets it together. They looked really good against Oregon State. Okay. I love Dan Lanning. He and Kirby Smart are just 2 of my favorite coaches in the country. And I hate to say it, but I do think Dylan Gabriel's a talented quarterback. These OU guys, man. And then number 1, Texas Longhorns, undefeated SEC champs. I'm all in. Like, this is the year. Why shouldn't it be? Do not let anyone tell you that game against Michigan does not count because, it's a different team. This isn't the team that won the national championship. They lost everybody. They have the top 2 NFL prospects in the country on their defense, and we blew them apart. That's all I'm saying.
I think every Colorado fan from last year or 2 years ago would go, or last year, would go, hey, we beat the defending runner-up champion. Like, we beat TCU, right? Like, now last year, did anyone beat Georgia? I kind of forget. I don't think they did, because I think Georgia was like 22, or they're on some crazy winning streak now, like 27-0. But if anyone's curious, that Colorado got ranked off of beating a TCU team that was ranked last year. Why wouldn't in the same transitive properties you still say, hey, you got the top 2 players in college football, at least top 2 draft picks coming off this team? Like, if Oklahoma State, if we beat Colorado later on this year, I'm not guaranteeing anything. If we go into Boulder, beat them, we beat 2 first-round draft picks. Like, that's probably it. That's going to be what the name is. The title is. It's going to be whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, whatever it is exactly. Yeah. Right. But we're going to hype it up like that. You guys should be hyping it up however you get. Because, Michigan
most
counts.
Watched game of the year. It probably will be until Bama, Georgia in 2 weeks. That'll probably beat it. But.
And then, do you guys play? Who do you play?
We played Georgia. We played Georgia at home. That's probably going to be 1 versus 2. We'll see. But that's a tough one. I'd love to go to that, but that's a really tough ticket. We've got we open SEC against Mississippi State. We've got Florida at home. We've got Kentucky at home. Obviously OU. Anything can happen at Red River, obviously, but I think this is an undefeated football team, Calvin. And I do not say that lightly, but I think this Texas Longhorn team, I think this is an undefeated football team that will win a national championship.
All right, well, let me get off one hot take I saw earlier in a group chat. 2 hot takes here. Let me know what you think here for the last 2 minutes. First, is Baker Mayfield today better than Trevor Lawrence?
He's playing better than Trevor Lawrence.
Then he's got to be, right?
Last year.
Did
it's
Trevor
wild. Lawrence lose 6 of 7 games to end last year? Yes, he did.
So, okay. All right. So not that hot of a take. Okay. Pretty warm. Yeah. Pretty warm. But not cold. All right. The other one here is, oh gosh, it just slipped my mind. Let's see if I can bring it back. I really do think like Oklahoma State will be good at football this year, but basketball we could be absolutely horrible at. Maybe I'll remember it later on here and talk about with the Utah guy, but I just completely lost it. But I'm curious who you think will win the Big 12 for the next 5 years. I guess that's kind of the question if I remember it right. Like, will Gundy be able to rebuild in the new Big 12? Will K-State be able to?
I don't think one team is going to dominate
the
Big 12. Honestly, I think it's going to maybe have the most parity of any of the big leagues. I mean, yes, there's a lot of big powers in the Big 12 or the Big 10 for sure, but like at the end of the day, I still kind of think it's going to be Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, and it's probably going to be Ohio State and maybe Michigan. So like maybe throw Oregon in there now, but like with the SEC, it's like it was Georgia and it was Alabama, and now it's Georgia and it's Alabama and it's probably Texas. It's like we kind of added a team or two that can compete. I think the Big 12 could be wide open for a while. It's got established coaches that probably aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Kyle Whittingham, Mike Gundy, Kleinman at Kansas State probably isn't going anywhere. Future's nice.
Whittingham has named his replacement. He's on his staff right now. Now, he hasn't named when he's going to retire, but he's named, I think he's just trying to keep that guy around for a couple of years, whatever he can. Because I'm sure he's getting offers, but they're not as good as a Utah offer so far. And then once he does get one, I think maybe then Whittingham goes, all right, I'll leave. We'll see. One of those things of like, deserves to stay around. All right, well, Patrick, thank you so much for joining here on the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast.
Always a pleasure. Welcome Horns.
Yeah, thanks for coming on here. Do you have anything to shout out here? Any?
Shout out the Horns. Shout out University of Texas.
Oh, cool.
Nothing really pluggable on my end, but glad to see the podcast doing well and look forward to the next time I'm on.
Thanks so much. Yeah, shout out to your music making abilities. It's kind of College Football 25. If you won many dynasties already in the game. I
suck at that game, but it's a lot of fun. That's all I'll say.
I'm not good either, but I'm trying to learn how to play better, and I'm definitely adjusting the sliders as I get better. But I've definitely had some 84-0 blowouts. But there's definitely a freshman.
Oh yeah,
there's a freshman setting on there, right? There's definitely no one's playing on Heisman mode at least, at this address. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for joining again here. And if you're not already, follow at the CGA Tour wherever you listen to podcasts, and send us some questions here for the next episode on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're listening as well too. I'll catch you guys again soon. Go Pokes.